Koutou, ko tātou I te kura o taputeranga, ko Amy Austin, taku ingoa.
Kia ora, ko Jacqui taku ingoa. It's a real pleasure to be here today and to be part of the conversations around bringing the potential of our New Zealand curriculum back to life. And so just in what we're going to share, we're going to just talk really briefly about what we're doing in our school with the New Zealand curriculum leading into our school curriculum, the research that has informed our practice, and just some snapshots of our approach and leading into some narrative assessment and ways in which our students are evidencing their learning, and then just thinking about what's next for us. So we're currently going through we've been going through a revisioning process, and so it's been really timely, the end of national standards. And so our new vision statement, creating holistic learners in a broad inquiring curriculum that fosters a love of learning and cultivates creative minds. It's given us a real opportunity to focus on the front end of the curriculum as well as the back end, and reminding us to stay true to our curriculum and keeping the vision at the heart of what we do. We've just got a short video which is being developed around this revisioning process about the values that we want to drive our students' learning. You can see the values: whanaungatanga, empowered; curious, creative, critical, collaborative, the 4 Cs; active citizenship, resilience and empathy are the values that our community, in consultation with our board and our community, have decided that want our young people to live by. But one thing that really came out of that was, from our community, was for our students to be caring, and caring New Zealanders. So that's where the we care has come from. And we can see that the key competencies, the values, the principles of the NZC are wrapped inside that for us.
So we draw on quite a broad research base, and we won't be able to talk about all of it today, but we're touching on just a few as we talk through some snapshots of our approach to learning. So one of them, which you'll see throughout our teaching examples, are the thinking routines that come out of Project Zero, which is at Harvard Graduate School of Education. We also draw heavily on Kath Murdoch's approach to inquiry learning, which is one of the key ways that we teach at Island-based school. There are a number of others there that we draw on but won't be talking about today. And also Yoram Hapez, among many others, talks about performances of understanding and also the importance of critical thinking, but also dispositions and content that you need to be critically thinking about something. And that's where we see the front end and the back end of the curriculum coming together. So we're looking at kind of holding both of those things together. So you'll see some of those threads as we move through. We also actually, I wanted to mention Alex Gunn, who spoke this morning. We really enjoyed hearing from you, and a lot of the research that we draw on actually comes out of early childhood, and we think that there's an amazing wealth of research that we can learn from our early childhood colleagues.
So inquiry is really important to us at Island Bay, and we are really passionate about connecting the curriculum through an inquiry approach and situating learning in powerful and authentic contexts that we know are worthwhile learning about and meaningful and relevant to our kids.
So in thinking about how we do this, how we integrate the different curriculum areas, we've divided our curriculum areas into host learning areas. So those are the ones that really are a lot about the way the world works. So health, science, social studies, and aspects of technology. And that's often the content students will learn about. They'll be learning through dispositional learning, but then they'll be demonstrating their learning through the arts, through maths, English, technology, Māori, and languages. So again, this is another way that we try and think really carefully about how we pull together the front and back end of the curriculum.
Our inquiry model that we use is an adaptation or a variation on Kath Murdoch's model that follows tuning in, finding out, sorting out, and then through the going further process includes action projects and individual lines of inquiry.
So the tuning in process always involves powerful hooks where we're hoping to really engage learners through something exciting, strange, something that will really be engaging learners in an authentic context, often some kind of emotional connection that is also really fun, getting children wanting to learn. So we'll talk about a few of those examples.
The first one is from our Year 5 and 6 senior team beginning of this year. They visited the He Tohu exhibition at the National Library, and following that they were establishing their hub and team treaty for the year, and so they came up with what that treaty might need to be, and it was written up by the teachers overnight, and they all signed the treaty, and there were some clauses that were written in a way that could be interpreted in different ways. And so the following day the kids were shocked when they came to school to find that their turf had been cordoned off, and the teachers were to have part of that because they had signed it. And so that was, they were outraged, but that was the powerful hook that got them into really wanting to learn about New Zealand's history in Te Tiriti or Waitangi.
Another powerful hook that has been used by a Year 2 and 3 team this term is there was a video and a note that arrived in class from paleontologist Pete, who actually the children don't know is the teacher's boyfriend, and he was encouraging the kids that there were some bones hidden in the playground somewhere, and he needed them to go and explore, and they were needed to help discover these bones that actually the same teacher had made out of breadsticks at home, laboriously created these bones and then painted them, and they'd buried them in the playground so they were hidden under the bark. So here you can see the children digging and discovering a whole collection of bones, and they still completely believe that they have found a real dinosaur in our playground, and now they're working at categorising and putting it together to discover where it came from and what kind of dinosaur it might be. Another example that we have of using a narrative to kind of draw children in is using the mantle of the expert, which is work done by Dorothy Heathcote that involves process drama. So you have a narrative that kind of runs through the inquiry. The children know that they are taking part in an imaginary context that kind of connects with their learning, but we often find that actually when children step into the mantle of the expert, they will take risks that they might not otherwise take, even though they know this is an imaginary situation. So our Year 3 and 4 class or hub are working here. There's a bad company in the world that is called BAD, Be All Digital. They only want people to be on devices and they don't want them to move at all. So they have formed a company called Be All Moving, which is encouraging people to move, and through both science, so they've done a lot of looking at movement through science, but also through PE and dance, they're trying to inspire the world to move again. So they often will, quite consciously move, like step into the mantle, and actually in that clip you saw under the collaboration, you may remember there was a class moving in a circle, and that was them going into the mantle, so they were kind of taking on their roles.
I think one of the other things we're really noticing is the importance of the kids to see relevance across inquiries and between contexts. So one of the current inquiries at the moment in our senior end of the school is they're exploring thinking like a scientist, but also thinking like a performer. So they're learning about chemical and physical change at the moment, but they're demonstrating their understanding through the arts and finding the crossover between science and the arts, and making those links really explicit so the transferability is really obvious to the kids.
In our junior area of the school, we're really inspired by Reggio Emilia practice, which comes out of Italy, and is a real approach to thinking about teaching and learning that sees the environment as the third teacher. So a few teachers were lucky to visit some schools in Melbourne earlier on in the year where we saw some amazing examples of provocations in the environment that the children were learning in, that teachers had created to ensure that children are learning as discoverers and connecting in really exciting ways with their learning. So here you see a few stations, and then at our school the new entrant classes are learning all about light, so reflection, refraction, and the teachers are setting up a lot of kinds of activities that are available for children to explore and try and play in order to learn about light. So here you can see the photos at the bottom don't quite show when you actually look through the glass. The pink and blue rectangles actually swap places, so things that kind of spark children wondering, why is that happening, what's that all about?
We know that kids learn by doing, and so we're really interested when we started becoming more aware of maker-centred learning, what that meant in connection to our inquiry, but also just for our kids' learning in general. And so we had some teachers that took part in the Harvard Graduate School of Education study, Thinking and Learning in the Maker-Centred Classroom, and really just helped us look for opportunities where we can integrate maker-centred learning and get kids making, creating and doing without necessarily needing all the fancy bells and whistles. So, you know, just that makers are curious, they're playful, they're willing to take on risk, that they take on responsibility, projects that help others. There's some beeswax wraps being made in the top right hand corner, that they're resourceful and optimistic and believe that they can actually make a difference in their own future. Another thing is, with all this, we were aware that the curriculum was still feeling quite compartmentalised, and so flipping the design of learning into the kids starting the day with really holistic, integrated experiences, and from that then some targeted learning and teaching coming out of the sort of immersive start to the day, and the kids being really in charge of designing their learning and having authentic voice and choice over what their learning looks like, with a lot of opportunities for student-led workshops, learner-led inquiries, and time for teachers to work alongside students as learning coaches.